The average financial planner can handle 1, 2, or maybe 3 meetings a day, whereas really great advisors can do 6, 7, or even 8 meetings a day. In this video, I'm going to show you the 8 changes you can make to your practice to dramatically increase the number of meetings you can have, thereby dramatically increasing the amount of profits that you earn in your business. My name is Matthew Jarvis. I built a $2 million a year RA practice. And one of the reasons I was able to take 6 months off every single year is that I do a concept called surge meetings. So let's talk about the 8 things you need to do in your practice so that you can see more clients a day, still delivering the same amount of value, but therefore having far more time to prospect or to work on your practice or to just take time off. So the first is to understand the importance of blocking your meetings together. A gazillion years ago, Henry Ford invented the assembly line. It took the creation of the Model T Ford from 12 hours down to an hour and a half. Same number of parts, same car, 12 hours down to an hour and a half. Now you may be thinking, Matthew, that's really cute. I'm not making automobiles. I'm designing complex financial plans. And that may be true, but the author Cal Newport in his book Deep Work lets us know that it takes up to 4 hours of focused work before we hit peak state on a mental task. And so by blocking your tasks together, including client meetings, you get better and better at it. But let's also run through this scenario. Let's say you're the average advisor doing 1 or 2 meetings a day. Therefore, you're seeing probably 3 or 4 clients a week. This now means you need to spend your entire year doing 3 to 4 meetings a week, which is how we fall into these traps of I can never take time off, or I'm always busy, I'm always reacting. If we compare that to my schedule, which we'll look at in a minute, I'm doing 6 meetings a day, meaning I'm probably doing more meetings a day than the average advisor is doing in a month. And that means the weeks that I'm not meeting with clients, I have a lot of time available. So the first is to understand the importance of doing a surge type meeting schedule. Number 2, and we'll pull up my calendar here, is to have your ideal calendar week. So this is my calendar from any given surge week. I'll kind of walk you through this. On Mondays is my prep day, unless I'm really trying to get meetings done that week, and then I'll do 6 meetings that day as well. This is where I prepare for meetings. It's where I review through my case prep. It's where I make sure I understand what I'm going to talk about with clients. And then for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I'm doing 6 meetings a day. Now you'll notice that each day I have the exact same meeting schedule. This is not because, 18 clients randomly called and all asked for the perfectly scheduled time. Instead, it's because I have designated times where I meet with clients. So when a client calls in and says, hey, I'd like to meet with Matthew, instead of the team saying, well, what time works for you? The team says, great news. Matthew meets with clients on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And the client says which day they'd like. I'd like to meet with him Thursday. Great. Matthew sees clients at 8:30, at 10, at 11:30, or at 1. Which one of those times works best for you? If the client says, can I see him Friday at 2? The team's going to say, great news. Matthew sees clients Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. If they say, fine, I'll come in Thursday. Can I come in at 5:45 p.m.? Great news. Matthew's last meeting of the day is 4 p.m. Again, it's like a doctor's office. We have a system. Now, this schedule might be more or less intense than the schedule you run. My good friend and perfect RA co-founder, Micah Schlansky, does 7 or 8 meetings a day, 5 days a week for 5 or 6 weeks straight. That's more than I can handle. I can do 6 meetings a day, 4 days a week max, not on Fridays because I don't work Fridays. But you need to find a schedule that works for you. The first step on this, and I talk about a lot in my book, is to be intentional. Start with carving out times. Start with saying, hey, going forward, I'm not ever going to meet with clients on Mondays or on Fridays. Those are going to be my prep days or my follow-up days. You can then designate a week each month where you don't meet with clients. You can get to the point where you're designating entire months where you don't meet with clients, but that gets a little bit further on. So point number 1, or change number 1, understand the value of surge meetings. Change number 2, have a surge week schedule that you adhere to religiously. Point number 3, have the same prep for every single meeting. So anytime I'm going to meet with a client, my team prepares the exact, and I mean the exact same documents. They prepare an agenda, they prepare a homework sheet, they prepare a couple of printouts of value add, a statement, whatever the case may be. So I have that stacked on my desk in the same order every time. So when I come into the office on Monday or on Thursday, depending on my schedule, I can look at the preparation for all of my client meetings. They all look exactly the same. I can then pull up my dictation from the last meeting, which follows the same format. We'll talk about it in a minute. And within just a few minutes, I can get 80 or even 90% of what I need for that client meeting versus the average advisor who 10 minutes before their client walks in, they're scrambling around trying to get information so that they can serve that client. My stuff is all prepared in advance. Now, don't confuse this with a lack of personalization. By systematizing all of the things that I can, it lets me free up all of my brain power for personalizing the experience for the client. So whereas the average advisor is digging back through the client's records trying to figure out their systematic distribution, I can simply glance at my homework sheet and I can save all of that brain power for talking to the client about their concerns and their needs. Item number 4 is to follow the same process for every meeting. Now, this ties to that preparation package, but it's more than just that. What is the process for scheduling? What's the process for confirming? What's the process for following up? This doesn't need to be elaborate. Now, it can be, like you can make it as elaborate as you want. It can be as easy as we do all of our scheduling through Calendly. That way it's set time slots. It can be as easy as 2 days before every meeting, we call and do a confirmation of that meeting. Ideally, all of my processes, because I have a really short attention span, fit on a single sheet of paper or are automated as much as possible. The fifth change you're going to make to be able to do this many meetings a day is to have a consistent dictation process or a memo process. Now, this is getting improved dramatically with AI note takers. You can have your own templates that your AI note taker will fill in. Short of that, though, you need to have a template or a process for recording your notes to yourself for your next meeting. So when I meet with a client, I'm taking notes as we go along. I'm recording any promises that I've made, which we'll talk about in just a second. And then after the meeting, I'm spending 5 minutes immediately after the meeting summarizing those notes and giving specific action items to the team. Now, I've also repeated those action items to the client in the meeting. So whatever I promised them, I wrote it down. So let's say I promised that we were going to do a $10,000 distribution. So before the meeting's over, I say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Client, as we said, we're going to distribute $10,000 from Bob, your IRA account. We're going to have 15% withheld from taxes, and we're going to send it to your same bank account that we send all of your other distributions. Did I get that right? Bob says, oh, Matthew, you got that spot on. And again, I wrote it down. Bob saw me write it down or type it up, however you do it. And then in my dictation, I hand it off to the team exactly. Now, you'll notice I was very specific. How much money, from what account, to what account, and by when. I always want to get all of those details in. What I don't want is either the client to guess when I'm going to have that done. So if I say, hey, Bob, we'll take care of that. Is that later today? Is that tomorrow? Is that next month? Is that next year? I want to say, hey, by next Thursday, we'll have this done. I also want to be very specific to the team. If I give vague instructions like, hey, send Bob $10,000, the team is going to have to follow up with me. They're going to say, hey, Matthew, from where? What about tax withholdings? Where are we sending it? And then I'm going to have forgotten it because I'm 6 meetings deep. And then I'm going to have to go back to Bob and look like a real idiot. So again, a big change you can make is doing consistent dictations after meetings. The sixth item, skipped ahead. The sixth item is to empower your team to do these items. Now, notice that distribution example I gave. I didn't say to Bob that I would do it. I said that it would be done. Usually I like to say specifically who would do it. You know what? Alan from our team is going to take care of this. Colleen from our team is going to take care of this. But I want to, as much as possible, hand these things off to the team. In my perfect world, I have to never see this dictation again. I record those items and I have it out for the team. If it's something a little more elaborate, I might put in my dictation, hey, I need to schedule a time after a surge meeting to do this, or I need to put this as a note for the next meeting, or I need to schedule a time to send an email, whatever the case may be. I'm going to try to put as much to the team as I possibly can. Item number 7 is to have a plan for your non-surge meeting times. Too often when advisors implement a surge schedule, they do a week of a ton of meetings and they haven't figured out what they're going to do the following week. This is where I like to keep an action item list on my whiteboard, on my wall of all the things I want to do after surge. We don't make any system changes during surge. And so after surge, I have these things. I also recommend, if you're new to surge, especially if you have a family, surge time is very demanding. Now, another day we'll talk about that doctors do this schedule every single day. But for most financial advisors, doing 6 meetings a day, 4 or 5 days a week for a few weeks on end, that's a lot and it has a burden on your family. And so I let my family know, hey, we're going to be in surge during this period of time. Here's the dates. It's on our family calendar. But when I get done with surge, here's what we're going to do to celebrate. Here's the trip we're going to take, or here's the thing that we're going to do so that we can both be all in during the meeting times, but we can also celebrate when it's over. And then number 8 is to celebrate success. Entrepreneurs, successful entrepreneurs, all live on delayed gratification. It's kind of our superpower. And sometimes we forget to celebrate that success. So that's, again, as I mentioned just a second ago, with your family to celebrate, with your team to celebrate, with yourself, whatever the case may be, have a real milestone that you're aiming for. So the one warning I'll give you as we wrap up is do not go from 1 meeting a day to 6. You will not be able to handle that. That will not be sustainable. I've read several articles of people that have tried this and it did not work for them. You want to ease in. If you're currently doing 1 or 2 haphazardly, then do 4, right? If you're currently having meetings on every day of the week, then narrow it down to 3 days a week or 2 days a week or 2 weeks a month or whatever the case may be. The key here with all things is to be intentional. Now, if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my book, Delivering Massive Value, where I talk extensively about how to implement surge meetings and how to do your client meetings. A link to the book is in the show notes below. And until the next video, happy planning.